A new children's book series, First Conversations, is designed to help families talk about difficult topics like race and gender. The authors Megan Madison and Jessica Ralli say they wanted to write books they never had growing up. Here's a reading from their book, Our Skin, a first conversation about race.
Our skin is beautiful, strong, and important, just the way it is. What do you love about your skin?
Just by looking at someone, we can't tell who they are on the inside. But sometimes people try to anyway.
Enough! It's enough!
Racism happens in lots of big and small ways.
Racism can be an idea, like thinking princesses only have blonde hair. Racism can be on purpose, like calling a person of color a mean name. Racism hurts and is always unfair.
That's why it's important to talk about it and to do our part to make things better.
Black Lives Matter!
People are working for racial justice by telling the truth and sharing feelings, by treating people the way they want to be treated.
Megan Madison and Jessica Ralli, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, race and gender can be difficult for adults. How do we break it down for kids?
I think that's a really important question, and one that Megan and I thought about a lot. You know, as early childhood educators, something that you have to do all the time is take really big ideas and break them down for very small kids. So we thought a lot about words and concepts, and sometimes our sentences started as like 15 words and we broke them down into maybe 4 or 5 words. And we practiced a lot on kids. We had many conversations with my own children to kind of see what stuck and what they understood.
How old are your kids?
My kids are now 5 and 8, but when we started writing the book, they were 4 and 6.
I wonder too, Megan, at what age should you start having this conversation with kids? Because I remember my kids are now 34 and 35, so they're employed and potty trained. So we're past the race conversation. But when I first started having it, they were 4 or 5. They had, Will in particular, they had no concept of color. Like they were guessing. Like he said, you know, you're white, daddy's black. They honestly did not see color.
Yeah, every child is different, but studies show that most young children are starting to notice differences in skin color and also notice big unfair patterns in the world, like why are there only boys on our money? Or why in our school do the people with white skin, like why are they in charge? And all the people who cook our food or clean up our trash, why do they all have brown?
Kids are noticing that?
Yeah, kids are noticing those patterns and developing questions, whether they have the language to express them or not.
Maybe they don't know what it means.
Exactly.
At what age do you think you should start having this conversation?
I mean, I think it's never too early to start. So I often tell parents right now is the right time. But I think as soon as your children are noticing things, it's worth opening the conversation and exploring what questions do they have.
So kids are noticing, but I remember from my childhood, and I think a lot of people at home will remember being taught colorblindness as the ideal. Oh, you're noticing all these things, but don't notice. Actually, just treat everyone the same. And this book takes a very different approach. When did things shift and why?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think that colorblind ideology that I was also raised with does 2 things. First of all, it denies the lived reality of lots of people of color in our country who are impacted by systemic racism and who may be treated differently because of their skin color. And then the other thing it does is it completely shuts down the conversation. So if you can't see something, then you obviously can't talk about it. And you just can't fix anything that you can't acknowledge and you can't understand.
Yeah, we were all raised that way, be colorblind. And I now don't think that that's such a good idea. Somebody told me the phrase color brave, and I like that so much better than colorblindness, that actually go there, because talking about race, talking about now gender, is very uncomfortable for people.
And I would add that, you know, if you don't have these kinds of conversations, if you're wondering like, oh, is my child seeing color? I'm not sure I should start the conversation. What happens is that children do come to their own conclusions.
For sure.
They will figure it out on their own, and those conclusions often will include bias and gender stereotypes because those are the dominant messages in society.
Or influenced by somebody else that shouldn't be leading them in these conversations.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of those conversations, should it change depending on the child's race?
I mean, I think I'm an early childhood educator, and we use this concept of developmentally appropriate practice, which is a very long, fancy word, but essentially it means with every conversation, you want to take into consideration both what you know about that specific child, each child is different, also what you know about in general child development, and then the third piece is context. It's going to be a different conversation for a 2-year-old multiracial kid growing up in Sacramento versus a 6-year-old indigenous kid growing up in Oklahoma. So you're going to think about, every parent, every educator is going to think about all those different factors, because there's no one right conversation. They're all going to be a little different.
No doubt about it. Thank you so much for joining us, Megan and Madison. Megan Madison and Jessica Ralli. First Conversation series available wherever you buy your books. We'll be right back after this. This is awesome stuff.
Thank you.